Back to horrible. So what does the attempted Times Square bomber story tell us about the larger fight against terrorism in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and what more can the U.S. do to stop it? David Rode is a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter who covered Afghanistan and Pakistan for the New York Times from 2001 to 2008. He was working on a book in 2008 when he was captured and held prisoner by the Taliban for 7 months. He escaped in June 2009, and now he's finishing his book. David, thank you so much for joining us. Give us a picture of Waziristan, the place where you were held, and to what extent can you tell us about the place in which Fazil Shabazz was trained?
It is Waziristan, where I was held, is the same place he was trained, and it's essentially a Taliban mini-state. The regime that the U.S. felt it toppled in 2001 in Afghanistan has simply moved a few hundred miles to the east and is based in Waziristan today. It's a Taliban government. There are Taliban police. Taliban run schools. Taliban run work crews. It's literally their own state. My guards were trained by foreign militants in how to make roadside bombs that would kill American soldiers, and foreign militants were also brainwashing young Afghan and Pakistani Taliban to carry out suicide attacks.
What can you tell us about the recruitment of people like Shahzad, rather, in terms of people who were in the United States naturalized and brought over there, recruited, and then sent back to commit terror? What can you tell us from your experience?
It's hard for me to say about the specific recruiting, but my guards and the commanders who held me, the Taliban, were very eager to carry out attacks inside the United States. They told me that they had met some people in Waziristan who spoke English like Americans, like I did, but I never met anybody by that description. But there's no question that the people in North Waziristan, again, it's this mix of Afghan Taliban, Pakistani Taliban, and foreigners, want to carry out attacks inside the United States. That's what they told me over and over again.
There's a lot of notion out there, maybe we've perpetrated it here because we keep hearing it, that the Taliban that's in Afghanistan is different than the Taliban that's in Pakistan. Your view of that, having experienced captivity by the Taliban in Pakistan? There are, I would say, some Taliban in southern Afghanistan, and those are the ones that President Karzai is trying to negotiate with, that potentially could be dealt with in a political settlement. But the biggest problem, again, is Waziristan. The Afghan Taliban based in Waziristan are no different than the Pakistani Taliban. They all work together. They work seamlessly during my captivity. It's a generation of young Afghans and Pakistanis that have sort of grown up among Arabs and Uzbeks in that area, and they really believe they're part of a broader jihad. And what's amazing is that the Pakistani army was asked in January by Defense Secretary Gates to move into North Waziristan and eliminate this Taliban mini-state, but the Pakistani army has refused to do so since then. What's your gut sense, having had this experience? I know you're writing the book now, but if you could share with us your sort of the gut feeling of having been their prisoner. Are they evil? Are they very extremist? Where would you put them in terms of just people that you've experienced in life?
They live in this sort of alternate reality, and there's young boys who really don't know anything about the world beyond Afghanistan and Pakistan. They believe that they're fighting an effort by the U.S. to forcibly convert Muslims to Islam in Afghanistan and Pakistan. They think the U.S. is just out to eliminate Islam as a religion and occupy Muslim countries. They don't believe that 9/11, was carried out by al-Qaeda. They think it was a secret American plot to create a pretense to invade Muslim countries. And again, the key thing is that they're able to run these schools there. They're able to indoctrinate their young fighters. And the key issue is when will the Pakistani army move into this area and eliminate the safe haven they have. The 2005 London subway bombings were planned and carried out from there. The assassination of Benazir Bhutto. The recent case of Mr. Zazi, the American Afghan who was arrested for plotting an attack in New York. And now it appears that the Times Square bombing, all of these cases are linked back to Waziristan.
But would the person who's been arrested now at the airport, Shahzad, Fazil Shahzad, would he believe what they believe? Would he believe in the fact that the United States government had faked 9/11, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's widely believed in many countries, unfortunately, but it's particularly believed in the tribal areas. And my guards endlessly watched Taliban videos that portrayed themselves as the victims of this vast international conspiracy led by the United States.
States, the United Nations, Israel, India, all designed to subjugate Muslims across the world. And they really believe it. And them having this free territory that they control is just, a very dangerous thing. And the Times Square case seems to show that it's now a direct threat to the United States as well.
Well, I guess you didn't have any effort as a prisoner to argue with people, did you, when you were over there? Did you ever try a logical argument with them, or was that fruitless?
I did. I actually talked to them about could there be some compromise in Afghanistan where they could have strict religious law in some parts of the countries and not in others, and they said no, they couldn't compromise. These very hardline Afghan Taliban based out of the tribal areas, they're part of a group called the Haqqani Network. They refused to compromise. They said it was their religious duty to enforce hardline Sharia across Afghanistan. The Pakistani Taliban I met said it was their duty to enforce hardline Sharia across Pakistan. They told me that the people, the average Pakistanis and Afghans living in Kabul and in Islamabad were no longer Muslims because they lived under those governments. I was surprised by the extremism.
So it isn't a case of people just being unhappy, misfits, if you will, in the United States, like some people are anywhere, I suppose, and are looking for ways to sort of justify their alienation and joining in some fringe, crazy, we would think crazy, zealous group over there. You believe there's a real difference in worldview, and it's just fundamentally different. They look at the world as us over here against them, seeking to crush their religion and their culture, using even extreme means like blowing up 3,000 people in New York. In other words, it's an absolutely stark 180 difference. It isn't a matter of just finding some people who are Islamic or upset about life in the United States and recruiting them. They have to share that point of view to join them.
Yes, that's true. And again, because
I'm asking you, these are questions. I'm sorry I didn't phrase it correctly with the right question mark at the end. I'm asking you. You say basically, if we're dealing with people who look at the world totally crazy from our point of view, and there's no arguing with them, it's not about people being unhappy and joining them. It's about people accepting a totally 180 different view of the world than we have here.
Well, I would say it's a 180-degree different view than most Muslims have. Most modern Muslims do not support these people, and they disagree with their sort of extreme interpretation of Islam. So they have a 180-degree, different view of the world than most Pakistanis and most Afghans. But when they have, again, this area that they control where they can indoctrinate people and spread, and it's really an ideology, that's where they're going to be so powerful. There were Arabs in that area. I mean, and there were rumors that, and who knows, but this is an area where Osama bin Laden could be hiding.
Anything we can do to beat them except kill them?
Well, I think the key thing, again, is that the Pakistani army is the long-term solution to tribal areas. The drone strikes are effective. They are knocking out leaders of the Taliban and al-Qaeda, but the long-term issue is getting the Pakistani army in there. The United States has given more than $10 billion in aid to Pakistan since 2001, and the surprise is that the Pakistani army fails to go into this one area. They've moved into other areas. They've lost 2,000 soldiers, and it's important to recognize the sacrifices the Pakistanis have already made, but they really need to get into North Waziristan. This is the last holdout of the hardline extremists.
Well, David, good luck with the book. We can't wait to read it. We'll have you back when it's done. David Rohde, thank you. It was captured by the Taliban in Pakistan, has lived to tell the story. Up next, a Republican